Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we talk to the people behind today's most disruptive ideas, platforms, and technologies. Today, we're joined by Justin Ryburn, the field CTO or a field CTO at Kentik, a title that might sound familiar but often gets misunderstood. Unlike a traditional CTO working internally on product development, a field CTO sits at the intersection of technology, customer strategy, and innovation, and that's exactly where Justin. With a background that spans network observability, DDoS mitigation, automation, and infrastructure at scale, Justin brings a rare blend of deep technical expertise and field-tested leadership. With nearly a decade at Kentik, he's led engineering, solutions architecture, and customer success, helping organizations translate complex data into meaningful action. Justin, we're really thrilled to have you on the show. I'm excited to talk about your journey as a field CTO and learn a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
So maybe to start off, what led you to Kentik and that role as a field CTO? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so I actually joined Kentik in marketing. I knew the co-founder and CEO from a previous job. He was actually my customer at my previous job at Juniper Networks. Kind of lost contact with him over the years, and long story, but reconnected with him. And he was looking for somebody to join the marketing team that had a technical background and could kind of help us level up in how we do our demo of our product to our customers. So I joined. That was kind of my initial role with the company. Did that for about a year, and then went back to sort of my roots and my passion, which is pre-sales, the field, being out in front of customers. So I got the opportunity to take over and run and scale out our what we call solutions engineering. Some companies call it sales engineering or systems engineering, but titles are slightly different, but pretty much the same function. I really enjoyed that, did that for about 5 years, and then moved into the current role as field CTO in August of 20. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
I love it. It's always hard to sum up a whole career in a minute or so. So I appreciate the conciseness there. I am curious though, like this concept of the field CTO, it's come up at least once before on the show. And I think it's a really interesting concept. How does it come to life at Kentik? And how do you see it as different from a traditional CTO?
Yeah, so one thing you mentioned in the intro is a field CTO. At Kentik, I'm the only one. Maybe that's just because of the difference of scale than some other companies, but we only have one person with that title, at least currently, at Kentik. And the way it differs is, like you said, I'm sort of at the intersection of the customers, how we're bringing innovation to market, a little bit of marketing, but I officially report into the sales organization, into the revenue organization. So I'm part of the field, part of our go-to-market motion. And I pretty much have 5 focus areas: brand awareness and thought leadership. So I do a lot of things like today's podcast, kind of getting the word out there about me and about the company, what we're working on, and a lot of other public speaking engagements, as you might imagine, helping us drive our big deals. So being an advocate for our technology and what we're helping solve for our customers and some of our larger opportunities, meeting with executives and helping them understand how we can help them solve hard business problems and provide value to them. New product introduction, subject matter expertise. So I kind of work with our product to say, here's what I'm seeing in the market. Here's where I think we could improve. Here's what I think we can bring to market that'll really have an impact for our customers, and then ultimately, for our investors. See, what else am I missing? Oh, working with our channel partners. So a lot of our go-to-market motion is through resellers, through channel partners. So I work with a lot of them to help them understand our solution and how we provide value to our customers. And then the final one is I own business development and BD and alliances here at Kentik. So I work with some of our technology partners to help build integrations and help do joint go-to-market with them as we go bring a joint solution between us and them to our customers, usually through our channel partners again. So
really, I mean, what I hear you saying is one of the big differences, you have a product already.
Yeah.
Part of what you're doing is helping people at Kentik understand what the problems are your customers are facing. So 1, you can provide that feedback to make your product better. And 2, you can find the best ways to plug that in to not just sell, but to actually solve a real organizational, business, personal problem within those organizations.
Yeah, and I think, that's probably the difference I see in sort of today's environment versus some of the, past 20 years or so is customers aren't buying products with features, right? They're buying solutions that help them solve problems in their business, right? you're going to really struggle as a company if you're trying to sell something that you can't articulate the ROI, right? With the interest rates being what they are, the economy being as tight as it is, people aren't just spending money to play around with solutions by and large. I mean, there's probably some exceptions to that, but for the most part, every dollar being spent by a large organization these days is under scrutiny, right? And so being able to come in and articulate, here's the value that we're bringing to you and your organization, here's the problems we're helping you solve, here's what the ROI is going to be to bring in our solution, is never been more critical than it is today. And that's sort of what, in a summary, I guess that's what my role is, try and help with a lot of that, both internally and externally.
Well, I think that's a good lesson for anyone, whether you're a field CTO, a real CTO, or in the mailroom. If you can't show the dollar benefit of what you're doing, there's probably an issue.
100%. Yep.
Awesome. I am curious, AI is such a big part of the world today, and I'm sure it's a topic that comes up for you somewhat fairly often. When you're talking solutions with your customers, with people in the world at large, where do you see the disconnect between emerging trends, tech trends like AI, and what customers are actually ready for, that can trust, can use, adopt?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still kind of early days in knowing how AI is going to provide us some benefit to some of these solutions. And, similar to other technology trends over the years, you got like this, adoption curve, right? So we're at a really high hype cycle. The question is how much of that hype is going to translate into real value? And, it's a little early to tell. I was talking to an executive recently that said they have an AI first strategy. And I was like, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, we want to solve a problem with AI before we try and solve it in any other way. I'm like, what kind of problems are you trying to solve? Like, we don't know yet. I'm like, okay, you might have the cart before the horse, right? Like, I love AI. I spend a lot of time reading about it, researching it, playing with it. We're adding it into our own product, and we have a strategy around that. But that's because we have problems that we fundamentally believe AI is going to help us solve. And just, I won't turn this into a pitch on our own product, but what we're doing and what our customers are saying to us is there's a lot of data, a lot of volume of data that we're trying to sift through to help solve problems and get to root cause faster in our networks, right? And what Kentik is doing is adding AI to basically process all that data and help surface actionable insights for our customers through finding correlation and causation in that data and being able to surface insights that help our customers more quickly get to root cause. And I think, that's just one example that I see in the industry where there's some tangible use cases that AI is going to help us solve that the industry as a whole has been trying to solve for the whole time I've been in the industry, right? So I think there's going to be some real tangible use cases that are going to be really amazing in the way they change our approach on a lot of things. But
Absolutely.
Equally, there's going to be a lot of hype that never comes to fruition.
Well, and I think, AI, people have trust issues, security issues, all these different things. And I think when you talk about, here's the very specific problem that we're solving with AI, and here's how it knows, here's why AI is so good at pattern recognition or sifting through data in these ways, like that helps them trust because it kind of puts some boundaries around something that feels very large and scary. And I think that's really smart from a Kentik perspective to say, look, we're not coming in with an AI first solution, but this is how AI is boosting your ability to use our solution.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think, I was old enough to have been in the industry when the internet was first taking off, right? And some people had the same, and probably today still have the same distrust of the internet, and maybe for good reasons, right? There are nefarious purposes for the internet and bad actors on the internet. And I'm sure AI is going to be the same way, right? There are nefarious purposes for using AI. You can use it to create attack vectors much faster than you ever could, right?
Absolutely,
Prompt engineering and being able to get data to leak out of an AI model by tricking the AI engine, the LLM, into exposing some of its training data has been proven to be possible, right? So there are going to be some valid reasons to be concerned about AI, but I think just like with the internet, we have to try and figure out ways to do it safely and to apply those best practices and not just throw the entire technology out before we even get started.
From the perspective of Kentik, how are you guys keeping AI?
Yeah, so when we use LLMs, we're only sending hash data between our product and the LLM. So that's one way in which we're keeping it safe. And then when we train on a customer's data, each customer's data is only trained on their own data. They're all siloed. So we're not training across multiple customers' data intentionally so that we can keep all the data privacy. Because, I mean, we have a CISO, we have a whole security team that it takes our data privacy and data security very seriously. And we have since the beginning, since the early days of the company.
And I think that's an important thing to understand, that you can segregate the data. I don't think it's going to be long before you'll have laptops that have AI models running locally. Hell, you already do, right? Like that exists today. And you can keep your data on a hard drive and make sure it doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
How do you see that evolving in the future? Do you feel like local solutions are a big part of this? Do you feel like it's always got to be cloud-based? Like, where is Kentik going with AI?
I think it's going to be a hybrid approach, right? To your point, like anything that's training on customer data, we're going to keep local in our own systems, right? So the data doesn't leak out. I've sat through some really interesting industry talks where people are talking about, like, it really depends on what it is. I sat through one that's public, so I'll go ahead and reference it. But like Geico was talking at KubeCon last year about how they have been using AI for many years to do pricing of their insurance products. And they do all that in their own data centers, in their own environment where they can secure that data because they consider that to be a strategic differentiator for them, right? Now, equally, they're doing some LLM and GPT stuff to make their teams more efficient in how they respond to queries from customers, or I don't remember what the specific examples were, but the point is, like, just customer interaction and making their employees more efficient, that type of stuff. They're not as worried about the particular data. And so they'll run those models. And in this case, it was Google Cloud they were talking about that they're doing that. Right. So it's a hybrid approach. It depends on what the use case is and what the customer's trying to accomplish, how concerned they are about the privacy of that data. And that kind of drives where the data lives and where the training is taking place.
So if you're taking out your crystal ball and looking, 5-10 years in the future, what are you most excited about?
I mean, I would have to come back to AI, right? I mean, I think, if we can do it securely and we can, do it and address some of the nefarious stuff that it could potentially bring, I think AI really has the potential to change our society in the same way that the internet did, right? With the information age and being able to have information at your fingertips. I mean, for my generation, the internet has been huge in the impact that it's had on our society. And I think AI is going to be the same for the next generation and the impact that it's going to have on our society. Again, still early days, still got to figure some of this out, but I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm a big believer that this is going to make a huge impact on our society.
Awesome. I love it. So kind of as we're getting close to that wrap-up moment, what's the insight that you feel like people need to hear? What's the lesson learned that you've had over your career that you feel like is the relevant thing in today's world?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always been just constant learning, right? In the course of a 25-year career, I've learned a ton of things. Things have changed. I've had to learn new skills. I've had to learn new things. And so being a lifetime learner, and being open to having what they call a growth mindset. So if people aren't familiar with the concept of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, you need to approach life and careers, especially in tech and innovation, in growth mindset, because it's always going to be changing. It's always going to be evolving. If you don't like to wake up every morning and learn new things, if that's not your personality, you might want to consider a career change, because that's what tech is. Like, it's always changing. And that's what I love about it personally, right? That's what gets me excited about it, is like, there's always something new to be learning. But yeah, I would say that's like my biggest advice to people is just, just embrace that and, spend as much time as you can possibly carve out to be learning and new things.
I always like to tell people a good sign is when you can be excited about being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the moment you can look at something and go, oh, I was wrong, and think that's so cool because now I get to open up these new doors. I think that's a really good sign that you've started to shift your mindset. And you mentioned kind of like the idea of personality. I do believe that growth mindset is a learned trait. So I think anyone who's out there who has that fear of maybe I don't have the best growth mindset right now, that's something you can work on, something you can build and develop over time. I'm curious for you, do you feel like you've always had the growth mindset, or is that something you've built in yourself?
I think I've always been open-minded to it and been passionate about technology and learning new things. I think the big shift for me over maybe, I don't know, I'll call it the last 5 to 10 years, has been accepting that I'm never going to know everything. Like I used to have this, like, I don't know, fear of not knowing something, right? And be like, oh my gosh, I need to know everything to be like legitimate, to not have imposter syndrome, right? And I've learned to remind myself that I have to get over that. Like no matter how much I know and how much I've learned, there's still so much more to know and to learn, and that's okay. Like I don't have to be an expert on everything. That's why we benefit from collaborating with other people and learning things they know that we don't, and vice versa, right?
Diversity of thought and experience that it kind of
Exactly.
helps lift the bar for everyone.
Exactly. Yep.
Justin, I really appreciate everything you said, the great conversation, all your insights. This has been absolutely fantastic. For people who are interested in connecting with you and collaborating, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Sure. I'm on social media, on LinkedIn, on, I guess, call it X these days, and on Blue Sky. So any of those three would be great. You can look me up, Justin Ryburn, Ryburn. I get a lot of connection requests. If you're going to connect, just let me know where you heard me, so I at least have some frame of reference on who you are and why you're reaching out, and we can connect there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank everyone else who's listened all the way to the end. Hopefully this brought you some value. And while you're here, before you leave a rating and a review for us. And then also, if you know someone who would benefit from Justin's perspective, maybe some of Kentik's expertise, pass the episode along, share the value, and introduce them to Justin. And then lastly, as always, remember to go back, take an insight from today's conversation, apply it, and let us know how it goes. We're a firm believer in personal as well as organizational continuous improvement. And Justin, thank you again. Everyone else, thank
Thanks
you
for
as
having
well.
me.
And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.